Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Titletown South Florida, the Miami Herald's high school sports show. I'm Andre Fernandez, your host, deputy sports editor, joined as always by David Wilson, sports writer and attorney in the making. How's it going, David? How's everything going so far? First couple weeks?
Yeah, football pretty season? Good so far. Easing back into school. I haven't been in school in like a decade, so that's a little weird. But I'm excited for. I was supposed to be out at Chaminade Northwestern but that was going to be last Thursday. Got rained out, so delayed my return to the sidelines a little bit. But 3 games this weekend. Lots of. I mean, we're going to get to it at the end, but awesome slate of games. Obviously, opening week, the Broward Showcase is back. They throw you right into the fire with high school football season down here and across the country. I was sitting at a sports grill near FIU's campus the other day, and it was 2 Georgia teams were playing, and I guess it was the Corky Kell probably going on. And that was on TV while I was sitting there. So, yeah, we're back in high school football season.
Yeah, you didn't miss anything preseason.
Yeah,
Chaminade did what they're supposed to do. Yeah, so not that much, but yeah, like David said, now it's for real. Now we start Thursday and the first slate of games, Friday, Saturday. The Broward Showcase is obviously the big highlight this weekend. So, but before we do that, David and I are going to conclude the trilogy today, the 3-part season preview that we've been doing the last few weeks. Today, we're going to mesh together since 1M isn't that big. We're going to mesh together.
This is the Return of the King. It's 4 hours long if you get the extended edition.
People are going to see it. Not to scare them too much, but we're squeezing 2 classes in together, 2M, 1M. But yeah, Return of the King, you name it. Let's hope we have a good finish. Let's hope we don't blow it like Godfather 3, like most people think. But we're going to start with 1M. But remember, before we get into all that, we thank you as always for watching this show on YouTube or at MiamiHerald.com. You can always, obviously you can listen to it on iTunes, Spotify, wherever your favorite podcatcher is. But if you're watching it, we also appreciate that as well. But let's dive right in. Let's go first with that Class 1M we just talked about. And the first district, we know who the King, speaking of Return of the King hasn't gone anywhere. Chaminade showed what they've got last week, only played 3 quarters against Northwestern, but it was more than enough to kind of flex their muscle out there. This district is no brainer. I think that it's still theirs. It's them, Avant-Garde Academy, St. John Paul, and of course, Somerset Key. But when you look at Chaminade, I think we got to think, obviously, big picture. Can this team make a run at a national title with the kind of gauntlet they're going to face early on? 5 really tough games early, but probably the best offensive set of skill players in the country, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, if they run the table through that opening stretch, they should be the favorites, basically, to be the national champions. Not going to be easy, obviously. Like even week 1, St. Francis. Like I know they got blanked last weekend by Buford, but
Buford. Was that Georgia game you were watching? Or was
no, it wasn't. It was 2 Georgia teams. It was blanking. It was Travis Hunter's school. I can't remember what school it was. Okay. But
anyway.
Yeah, they get, not going to be easy from week 1 all the way through. So this district they should roll through it. I think, didn't they win a game in this district like 98-0 last year?
Something like that.
I don't remember if that was a district game or just another game, but there's not a whole lot to say in the previewing this district. Avant-Garde has flirted with being interesting the last couple of years, although lost a lot of guys to transfer after their coach George Stubbs left to become an assistant at American, as we talked about last week. But yeah, they've got national title on their brain. State title. They're the clear favorite. Not a gimme, right? There's some other good teams out there. But as far as this district and coming out of South Florida, like they're going to be in the state championship game. Like there's kind of no question about that.
Yeah,
or some sort of disaster, like disaster,
like a major disaster, like rash of injuries or something off the field.
And even that, exactly.
And then it's going to take a lot to derail them. But yeah, I mean, starting this week, their big game in the showcase, taking on that St. Francis Academy team, but Chaminade, Heritage, Gibbons, even locally a few others that team. There's no one that doesn't at least have a pulse on this schedule for like the first 7 weeks, really. Coconut Creek too. We saw them have a huge win last week over Monarch. But let's hear a little bit from one of the main architects of why this team is so good. Here's JoJo Trader talking about the season.
Expectations again, obviously, state title, and then more. Is that what the goal is?
Yeah, what do you
want to get back to the national championship, get our get back. So that's really the expectation, win another championship for my brothers. But last year with a bang, you know.
A lot's been made of you guys, the wide receivers and such, and you're back. Pretty much all you guys are back again. Is it even more? What's?
Yeah, it's even more. People don't know, but it's even more. Y'all think y'all saw something last year. Y'all about to see something different.
Do you kind of wear that whole "we're the best wide receiving group in the nation" kind of like that? You feel that when you're out there like that?
Of course, you gotta feel like that. You gotta have confidence. Confidence is key. That's what I tell you.
Stay hungry, though. You know, because you guys, a lot of you guys
stay humble.
You stay humble. Yeah.
And remember, you can lose it as fast as you got it.
Yeah.
You talked about trying to win a national championship. The schedule this year, I mean, you've had tough schedules before. This one even more. You're Central and other teams like that. Talk about how much you're looking forward to that, preparing you to try and make that run.
We've been doing a very good job preparing right now. We're doing summer workouts right now, getting good conditioning, getting timing down, offense, getting better on defense. We're just getting better as a whole, as a unit. So,
why does it work so well with you, with Cedric, with Jeremiah, with everybody? Why does it work so well?
Why it works so well? Because we've been playing with each other so long, and nobody selfish. We're a selfish team. Share the ball with everybody. We spread love.
What are you running? What's your time right now?
40 this year? My 40, when I was a freshman, I ran a 4.55. I ran a 46. So my break was a 37 as a freshman.
So you're feeling as good as ever.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a good coach now. I got to run it though. I'm gonna probably run it. Do they run it? Do they make you run in their college?
You might know in college? Yeah. Oh yeah.
So probably in college, y'all know it.
Yeah, and JoJo, I mean, since he came over from Central, what a talent. He's shown it from day one, what kind of how versatile of a player this kid is going to be. And got to be some excitement. The kid's staying home too. I mean, you know that firsthand from seeing how good this kid is to be able to take that to the college level. That's going to be fun to see for Canes fans.
Yeah, he's one of the guys that Miami, they needed one of those at least in every class, right? That guy who is, he's a 5-star recruit. He's very well respected. Basically, he played at Pace for a little bit, played at Central, as you noted. Now at Chaminade has kind of gone all over to some powerhouse programs. Dade County guy, I'm pretty sure, Miami Gardens. Miami's had, not a lot of, big picture, not a ton of success, but they've had success with those types of guys, right? Those Dade County kids who are stars at the high school level, come in, put in the work, good work ethic, all that kind of thing. And he fits that bill too.
I like I called him a Dade County kid, even though now he's
I think
in Hollywood. Although he really was a Dade County kid.
Well, I think he lives in Miami Gardens.
Right, and he is. That's what I mean. Yeah, exactly. So it's South Florida. I mean, he's got both counties represented there. So, But yeah, no question about it with Chaminade. I mean, beyond this district, I mean, Avant-Garde, starting over with Tally Adams, coach with experience. They went 6-4 last year. I mean, they could be a playoff team. They could get.
Yeah, they were a playoff team last year. They lost a lot, but they've had a nice little run these last couple of years.
Yeah, and then that's in the one region. Now going down to Region 4, which we know as last year we saw True North Classical Academy, which is school getting good at everything, little by little. They still look like another district where they should pretty much, cruise to another district championship. Last year they got the chance to face Chaminade in the state semifinals and got overwhelmed, lost 42-0. But they're still going to be competitive. They bring back a lot of the guys that they had last year.
They were very
predominantly very young team. I mean, Zach Katz at quarterback. J. Rock Lopez, the multi-sport athlete, big basketball player, great football player. Those two guys will be at the helm, so to speak, of this team with Greg LaFera, coach. Again, I mean, I think the Titans aren't going anywhere. I think they've got this district locked up, and it could be another run through this region to potentially to maybe have another rematch with Chaminade. Yeah,
they're probably throwing out Chaminade Manana. They're kind of the most interesting 1M team down here right now, I think. It was very bad timing that we switched to this system right as Champagnat, your alma mater, shut down. Yep. Like they would have been, they were always kind of a step below Chaminade, but they would have been the Dade County. They would have given us a Dade County powerhouse here. True North obviously is not what Champagnat was, a multi-team state champion. Put 10 guys Division I every single year. But they seem to be building in the right direction. Zach Katz, only a freshman last year, has a chance to be, one of the best quarterbacks in South Florida in a couple of years, maybe as soon as this year. They've got a former Kane as their head coach. They've clearly invested in that program. It's not like they're just kind of out of nowhere, a flash in the pan. They clearly are trying to build it up, through younger players, get them to stick around, seem to have a good coach. So we'll see, again, are they going to challenge Chaminade? Probably not, but they're trying to get there. And I think stringing together successful seasons will go a long way for that.
Yeah. And the region they're going to have to go through. I mean, we saw last year, not really that easy because you have some of these teams that do have some talent. Archbishop Carroll.
Yeah, District 8 is pretty interesting. There's
District 8, yeah.
There's like three teams in there that are pretty interesting.
Yeah, Carroll brings back a lot of that power running game. Alejandro Zaza was a first team all day kid last year. You know what they're going to do. They're going to run the football. They're going to power it. And pretty much the same formula with George Zagales there. Big up front. Kenneth Pembleton, a kid to watch, free safety, senior. Ryan Gonzalez also in the secondary. So it's an experienced Carroll team coming back that made it to the semifinals. But Palmer Trinity is the one that made it to the region championship, which was interesting because they had that quarterback that led them to the finals there. I mean, this year got to find a few new weapons there on that side of the ball for Palmer Trinity, Coach Mark Reese. But that region and Westminster Christian is going to be in that battle too. They've got a few guys as well. Jason Barquette, a quarterback, Amari Irvin, a linebacker that also plays running back, young kid there for the Warriors. But yeah, it looks like a 3-team battle. Like you said, the most interesting one in this group for sure. But can they deal with True North? Can they break through? And who's going to be the Region 4 representative? I guess is the big trophy at the end that they're all fighting for.
Yeah. Some of these private schools have some pretty interesting quarterback play. Not like I think Zach Katz could end up being a pretty high level recruit. Jason Barquette, though, you mentioned, was really productive last year. Aiden Davenport, who's gone, was Palmer's quarterback last year, had a really good season. Even some of the independent schools, Ransom has had some good quarterbacks. Like Dave, we've talked about a couple times, quite a bit on this show about the growth of quarterback play down here, and I think you see it at some of these private schools where the kids can often come in maybe as 8th graders, 7th graders, even if they're not starting, maybe they're getting some varsity snaps, playing against older kids, and that can make a district like this where these aren't necessarily powerhouse programs. Again, no one's probably competing with Chaminade. True North is probably the team to beat in this region and not involved in this scrum here. But you can get some pretty interesting teams out of it because of some of the advantages that the private schools, even the small private schools, have.
Yeah, and we didn't mention Palm Glades Prep, a little interesting coaching change there. Andre Daniels goes over there. He was at Somerset South Homestead. Brings a few kids over, trying to rebuild.
Optimistic,
Terrell Jones, a running back junior there too. Nielsen Demitson, the wide receiver corner, junior, also one of their leaders. And then Robert Chester takes over at Somerset South Homestead, trying to keep that program going, keep them afloat. So they're also in that fight too in that district. We'll see. I mean, maybe Palm Glades can make some noise as well. They had a few athletes last year on that Somerset team that came over, so we'll see what happens there. But that's 1M, and like we said, I mean, I think it's a matter of who does Chaminade face in the final if they get there. I mean, is it going to be Clearwater Central Catholic again? Jacksonville Trinity Christian is a team that's always been a power. It seems like they're starting to put it together again to make a run, or maybe University Christian, another team that's always in the mix in 1M. I'm trying to remember who you picked for the potential finals.
Carrollwood is interesting.
Day. Actually, that's another one.
They've loaded up. They've got a couple running backs. They're not a team that we think about this, but they've definitely kind of loaded up for a run this year. So there's some interesting teams across the state there. I don't know if anyone can knock off Chaminade. Like we said, I think it would take like a real disaster for them not to get to the state championship. I think it would still take kind of a disaster for them not to win the state championship, although a smaller one, like maybe a major injury or something like that. But there are definitely some good teams around the state in this classification.
Yeah, for sure. And After that, now we save the best for last. Now we're gonna go with the most loaded
No
class.
offense to
Once
everyone
again,
else, but yeah.
the class 2M. So going through it right now. Let's start at the top. Let's start in Region 3, and this is the one where again it's kind of similar to what we just left behind with Region 4 and 1M. Teams that are fighting for playoff spots, but going to be hard pressed to contend with some of the powerhouses, the established powers here. North Broward Prep, Calvary Christian, Pinecrest, and of course Northeast in that battle there. But North Broward Prep took a hit by losing DeAndre Desenor that went over to Heritage. I mean, that kid, 1,600 yards, that's hard to replace. Rex Nottage's team still has a running back in junior Anthony Mestre. That's pretty good. A couple guys up front like Alex Pavona Jr. But really, when you look at it, Calvary with Camden Hartzell, they're coming off a 9-3 season. Pinecrest coming off an 8-3 season. Jordan Faison is still there. The kid that's
younger brother's there.
Younger brother. Actually, that's Jordan Faison. I'm sorry. But also kind of like his brother, very, very talented.
He's also good. Yeah, Dylan. Yep. Also really good lacrosse player.
So, I mean, it's probably going to come. I think it's going to come down. North Broward lost a few key guys, so they'll be in the mix, but it seems like a Calvary Pinecrest battle in this district. Yeah,
you tend to get like districts like this. You get like good story. Like I remember Pinecrest a couple years ago won a playoff game, and it was like a huge deal, right? Like they kind of have different levels of expectations. I think Calvary, because maybe of some of their success and some other, their obviously their basketball success, I think they feel like they're maybe could get go up another level football wise. And they've, like you said, 9 wins last year. One of the most productive running backs in the state. But those two, I think you're right. Those two have been kind of the top two in that district for a couple of years now, and I expect it to be the same this season. It'll be really interesting to see though how Pinecrest replaces Jordan Faison, who did everything for them. He was played quarterback in like an option system, now playing safety at Notre Dame. So and lacrosse, and was a top 100 lacrosse recruit in the country. So that type of athlete, kind of like a generational type athlete for a school like Pinecrest.
Well, and moving on to District 12 at 2M, and here come the heavyweights and the aforementioned Heritage, which much younger Heritage team. They're not used to losing 27 seniors at a time, but between the transfer portal, as we call it, the high school transfer portal, they've reloaded, and some of the guys coming back too. But before we get to Heritage, talking about them on the gridiron, we just want to say that we really hope that by the time people are listening to this, he's doing better. Timothy Burrows Love, he collapsed the other day at the game against Booker T on the sideline. It was a scary situation for sure, especially these days with the extreme heat out there. We don't know exactly what happened. We don't want to assume what happened, but he collapsed. But kudos to obviously great thing that the Heritage training staff, medical staff responded quickly. Was able to get him. We're able to get the Miami-Dade Fire Rescue there. Then he was transported to the hospital. As of what I've been told, he's in stable condition. He's talking. He's been able to, talk to a lot of his teammates. His coaches have gone to see him. Seems like he's doing better. Obviously, he's still being observed at the hospital, undergoing a lot of tests. But we just wanted to take a minute to wish Timothy and his family well. Hopefully, Timothy is doing a lot better. And regardless of football, we just hope that he has a fast and healthy recovery, just in general. So before just wanted to say that before we get into talking about the team. And obviously, speaking of those Heritage kids, it's probably going to be an emotional week for them, having to play in that showcase this week. But looking big picture, he was one of the guys that was going to be one of their leaders. He's got about 20 offers or so. FIU was one of them. And, from a human standpoint, you never obviously want to see anything like this happen. But beyond, you hope he'll be able to be back, and that Heritage will be able to kind of rally as a team and be able to get through this situation.
Yeah, hopefully we see him back on the field at some point. Like we said, we don't know a lot of the details about what caused the collapse or anything like that. They're obviously not going to rush him back on the field, but it'll be, even if he doesn't get onto the field for Heritage this year, like you said, he's a kid with 20 scholarship offers, a really bright future. Hopefully we can see him get out on the field at some point again.
Yeah. And so Heritage themselves, going back to our preview now, talking a little bit about, like we said before, DeAndre Desenor, what he brings to that backfield that already had a kid, Byron Lewis. I mean, the biggest thing we talked about at Media Day with all of them is how do you replace Brandon Innes? How do you replace Mark Fletcher? Well, Desenor and Lewis in the backfield isn't a bad start.
Gotta say, they've had to replace a lot of good running backs, and they always tend to figure it out there.
Right. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see if Desenor emerges as the main back, or do they kind of, share a little bit of the load there with Byron Lewis? I mean,
got some like thunder and lightning kind of thing to them, right?
Yeah, kind
Lewis
of a power speed.
Power guy, Desenor a track star as well. So
I think so too. One of the biggest keys, though, I think, is a quarterback. And how does Diabell slide in there as a talented kid, only a sophomore, but really hasn't been thrown to the fire yet, has not really played in those big games yet, but he learned a lot from Blake Murphy over the last couple of years. And we spoke to Diabell at Media Day. Here's what he had to say about his chance to be the guy now for Heritage.
So tell us about, this season, stepping in now as the starting quarterback, and how's the process been like for you this off season, getting ready, and how much you feel like you've gotten better?
It's been great, honestly, being able to be mentored by all these guys, and throughout the past couple of years, while the guys that went to college that's mentored me coming up through, working with Coach Mike and everybody, it's been more of an easy process than I thought. I feel like we're going to have a good season. We're looking good. Just gelling in this fall, just trying to make sure everything's clicking the way we want it to click. So that's really what's going on right now.
What'd you learn from guys like Mark, guys like Brandon, and obviously they were there for many years?
Yeah.
What lessons? Maybe it's something that really sticks out to you that they taught you or that you picked up from them.
No, it's just really just the hard work and the work ethic they put into all their work all day long, and they do whatever they can to win, and that's their mentality, and they're going to do whatever they need to do that, and that's what I take away from them every day. And every time I step foot in that field, I'm going to play as hard and play as best as I can to help this team win.
Obviously, there's a lot of seniors last year, and a lot of younger guys. How do you kind of look at it in your time? What do you?
Yeah, I feel like for these young guys, it's definitely our time. We got to step up into this sort of like standard we have at American Heritage, definitely. But I feel like it's easier for us now that we've been mentored by those type of guys that go to such prestigious schools and have been through that type of this program before. So it's been more easy for us to step into that kind of role, but it's definitely our time now, and we got to take advantage of it.
You're a young guy, you still have a lot of high school ball ahead of you, but the college type of possibilities, what's that been like for you?
You talking about like recruitment and stuff?
Yeah, recruitment.
Yeah, the recruitment's been cool. I mean, like, obviously it's cool to know that people take interest in what you're doing and your ability to play the position you play. But honestly, we try and keep the main thing, which is holding the standard and trying to win games in high school and win that state championship. And then that time will come where I need to go to college and pick which one I want to go to.
I hear it's not a smart move to challenge you to a shooting contest in basketball. That's you're probably going to lose if they go up against you. You can hit it from anywhere. I heard.
I wouldn't take that challenge. I don't want to steal from people like that.
Yeah. Tell me about that. Your athletic background, playing hoops. How much in playing the quarterback position? Is there any carryover? Something that maybe growing up helped you? And how does that kind of work for you?
No doubt. Playing point guard is almost like playing quarterback. You're really leader and like the lead role in the team. You get your players in and out of offense, but in football case you don't get them in and out of defense. But it's more the same thing, and especially as a quarterback, and my passing ability is really able to be correlated between the two sports. So I mean, being able to play both and having that kind of connection between both sports is really helpful.
Your dad, obviously, everybody knows, remember the playing basketball days. What does he think of you playing quarterback and how you've been able to succeed on that side of it too? Like, what does he think about everything you've been able to do?
He's been really supportive. I mean, he's helped me through my entire process, even with the media and just work ethic and being able to get to workouts and showing myself to college coaches and getting around certain places and stuff like that. He's been really supportive and helpful in that kind of manner. But yeah, he's been a great help, and I couldn't ask for more of that.
So you're point guard in basketball?
Yes, sir.
And so what do you kind of like? Is there one that you like a little more than the other right now, or kind of what's that like for you?
Since sixth grade, really, I put it to myself that I'm going to do football more than I'm going to do basketball. I mean, obviously, I still take basketball like I still take it serious and stuff,
right.
But like I take football more serious. Like I want to go to college for that and stuff like that. Yeah. But basketball, obviously, I make sure every time I step foot on the court, like I make sure I do my best. Like it's not just a joke.
Yeah. Why'd you like playing quarterback? What made you like fall in love with that? Was there anything that kind of like sparked that in you? Or?
I feel like I just growing up, like ever since I touched the football, I've been throwing it. So I feel like just growing up, I've always had that love for throwing the football. I mean, in some way, just overgrew that basketball love, and I feel like that's the path I got to take now.
And who taught you to hit shots like Steph Curry from half court, stuff like that?
My dad, definitely. Yeah, Dad, and working with Dad in the backyard, and the trainers that he works with, and fixing my shot and stuff like that. I mean, that's what's really helped me in basketball.
Cool.
For those who don't know, he's the son of Raja Bell, former FIU, former Killian star, NBA player, Raja Bell. So, and really good. He already averaged 20-something points per game last year as a freshman. He's Heritage's best player on the court in basketball too. So you're looking at a multi-sport star here.
And maybe their most important player on the football field, right?
Oh, easily.
I think he's probably not going to be the best guy for them this year, but he's going to be the guy who determines. We're going to talk about the teams they have to go up against here in this district specifically. Right. He's going to be the guy who determines if they can get back to the state championship this year. Not to put a ton of pressure on a sophomore, but like they lose a lot. They need him to be. They're expecting him to be really good. They're expecting him already to be one of the best quarterbacks in the state.
Yeah, and he's kind of symbolic of where this Heritage team is. They're young, but they're very talented. So it's one of those things where once they start getting that experience, the question is, do they get that enough of that in the season through the tough schedule they have that then maybe by November they're not rookies anymore. They're clicking, and then they can survive kind of that gauntlet that they're going to face. And then, like you said, Gibbons, Stranahan, and Hallandale is the district, but mainly Gibbons, their old nemesis. It seems like they've gone back and forth the last few years. It's either one or the other in that area of Broward. And Gibbons is this season. Their big problem last year was offense. A lot of games that they just couldn't score consistently. It doesn't look like it's the same this year. Their offensive line is beefed up better than it's been in years. Even last week, they had a shootout game against Plantation, a much improved Plantation team, but they put up 45. Last year, barely did they even get close to that number in a lot of games. So, with the new quarterback, Mike Merdinger at the helm now, North Carolina commit, Colton Heinrich, the tight end, the big tight end for them, who is one of the rare prototypical tight end bodies, tight end skill set. We talked to him a little bit about media day. Let's see what he had to say about the Chiefs and playing that position, which is rare down here to see a kid that fits his athletic makeup.
You guys are to get going.
So this season, we got some excitement to us right now. The whole team's looking really good. I'm really excited about the season. Gonna play some tough competition. So hopefully come back and win another state championship. It's gonna be really fun.
Colton, those big guys up front sometimes get a little overlooked, but this could be one of the best lines on offense that you've had, maybe in a long time at that school. Talk about that process, what you've seen out of them in the offseason.
So yeah, they've definitely come a long way. They're awesome right now. We're pretty much like brothers. Me as an extension as the whole line. We were able to make practice fun and enjoy practice and enjoy being around each other, and pushes us to work harder and continues to make us better.
How much of a difference have you already seen just on the flow of the offense with that group just driving the engine right there up front?
It's definitely a big factor of our offense right now. It's gonna be awesome to see this year, especially with the running backs we have in the backfield right now.
About your commitment and to get that out of the way.
Yeah, so I'm committed to the University of Georgia to play tight end. It's the connection with Coach Hartley, the tight end coach there, is awesome. Connection with Coach Smart's amazing. I wouldn't rather be anywhere else.
To get that done where you don't have it hanging over you,
It's definitely a bit of relief not having to worry about anything like that. And for this last year, I was able to focus on football and focus on school, and so it's definitely a big relief.
Your recruitment pick up really fast? I know you'd had a couple good years, but it seemed like kind of all of a sudden,
it was
Georgia and everyone was.
It was out of nowhere. My first big offer was Kentucky, and then
when was that? Was that all? Was it pretty much all this winter?
Yeah, I think I want to say January, maybe. I think it was the entire month of January. It was absolutely insane. My head was on a spin. It was hard to keep up with.
Yeah, so Georgia's getting Brock Bowers' successor probably there with Colton Heinrich. That's a great spot to be in for sure. But when you look at just their offense, the defensive side of the ball, I'm not sure about yet. That didn't look so good at the preseason game, but it is the preseason. We'll see. Yep. I don't know. I kind of gave the nod early on, at least going into the season, to Gibbons in this battle, only because of their experience and because the offense is better. But I wouldn't put it past Heritage. It's all going to come down to, can those young guys like Diabell and others. I mean, I think Desenor is going to help a lot. That explosive playmaker in the backfield for sure, but and up front too. Can their line? I mean, how do you think it shakes out?
Yeah, they're probably going to play twice, right?
like always.
I'm, like we said, Gibbons. You probably feel a little bit better about them early on, because of the experience, and because the line, that's just something you can lean on. But like you said, Heritage, the talent level, and if they can put it all together, I think they have a little bit of a higher ceiling because, they have a quarterback who could potentially be, Merdinger is obviously really good going to North Carolina, but Bell is the kind of guy who has a chance to be one of the best in the state. If he, maybe not this year, but eventually, like you said, the running backs are as good as you'll find in South Florida. And their receivers, young, right? But Malachi Tony, Brandon Bennett, they're not going to replace Brandon Innes, but that's a pretty good, again, young duo to work with, both only sophomores, but it's pretty, they're like top end talent. If those guys all mature by the end of the year, they're going to be tough, I think, to match up with in a shootout.
Yeah, and Malachi Tony is going to be interesting. That like a redemption story for him. After he fumbled in the state championship game at the end, kid took it pretty hard. I wrote an article about it from what we talked to him about from media day. He's took a few weeks, kind of composed himself, and is on a mission this year. So he may be the inspirational leader of this team going forward. But we wish Heritage well off the field, as we said before, and with Timothy Burrows' love and hopefully a quick recovery. So let's dive into the region of death, Region 4. 2M holds the 4-time, seeking history to be the 5-time state champion Central Rockets, and a Norland team that has gone out and had probably the best shopping season any team had in the offseason. David, you got a chance to really see, talk to a lot of those guys. And one thing I found interesting from your article is the way everyone has been talking about, is this team a bunch of mercenaries? Is it a bunch of just guys, collection of talent? Doesn't seem like it. It seems like they've clicked. It seems like, a lot of it, what was that the off-season activities they did together, can they gel, I guess, is the biggest question. Norland loaded up to try and take down the King. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if they, like you said, maybe they are a bunch of mercenaries. Maybe that's what this ends up being. But Daryl Heidelberg clearly knows that's a concern and did everything he could in the offseason to try to make it so that this team feels like a team, even though, they got one of the best defensive lines probably in the state. All 4 of those guys are new. They've got, a couple wide receivers, like Jade Card, who could be, one of Enio Yapor's top weapons as a passer. He's new. The things I like about them, one is that Heidelberg, their coach, is a state champion before. It's not like this program has not been at this level in a long time. Last year was a huge breakthrough, their best season basically since their state championship season back in the early mid 2000s. But so they've got a coach with experience. They've got a school that's got good infrastructure, right? Good, They've had success in football. It's not like they're just out of nowhere, not prepared for a run like this. And the quarterback, obviously, Enio Yapor comes in last year, only a sophomore, comes from Champagnat, and immediately, not just super productive. That wasn't surprising that he was a 3,000 passing yard, 1,000 rushing yard type guy, because that's what he did also at Champagnat. But a leader immediately, and the way that guys rally around him, the way he plays, he's very, he's sturdy quarterback who's going to throw his body around, and that stuff all resonates. He's got a lot of his weapons back too, so I think they've got offensively there's not as much turnover there as you would think for a team that really has been super transfer heavy. Their defense is where a lot of the changes have been, and so I think a guy like Yapor, Jeremiah Marcelin, kind of the defensive equivalent of him, a linebacker, has been there 4 years. If this team succeeds, and I'm pretty optimistic about it. It's hard to look at that roster and not feel like they've got a good shot. It'll be because I think of the coach and because of some of those player leaders like that I just mentioned who have been there and have kind of gathered a lot of respect.
Yeah, well, one of the player leaders for Central, especially he's kind of the heir apparent to Ruben Bain, the great Ruben Bain now at UM, is EJ Marcelin. Let's see what he had to say. We spoke to him at Media Day just about stepping into that role.
EJ, just looking at this year, Central's done a lot of special things, obviously, as a program, but no one's ever won 5 in a row. Coach says that's the goal immediately. Like you're holding the trophy up, and they're already talking about the next one. And what's that culture like? Talk about being a part of that.
Winning a state championship for us is mandatory, but it would be even better to win a national championship on top of that state championship. I feel like it would bring our program up, and I feel like we got the power to do it because we're a very hardworking team this year. So I feel like we're going for that drive for 5 and getting that state ring.
How much was Ruben Bain like a mentor to you, and how much did you learn from him on how?
Well, I grew up with him as a kid, so like playing with him, it was just like he was my best friend. So like he was just taking me through the recruiting process with him, showing me things to do and showing me the way of the rocket way on the field. So now it's my turn to be a leader. So I just took all that from him.
How's that been like for you? Going into this season, just taking that role.
It's been going good. Taking that role, it was kind of hard at first, but I got used to it, and I just started to take over my defense.
You were a freshman when Wesley was a senior too, right?
Yeah.
Did he help you a lot also?
Yeah. In the beginning, Wesley was just showing me the way how to play linebacker at Miami Central. He just showed me everything he was doing, like extra work he had put in, I'll put in with him, and just to be the best linebacker in the state of Miami. I mean, dang, state of Miami.
It kind of is the state of Miami, right? What is something that jumps out at you still, like when you go out there, maybe on the field, something that they taught you, something you picked up from them?
Really just to pick up formations that they see. Like, we watch film religiously, so like just to see formations, I just see them pick up fast.
Coach, you're just telling us Central's not for everybody, and he makes that kind of clear. What is it to you that makes Central Central?
We hard workers. If you don't like to work, Central won't be for you. But we work constantly. Like when nobody's working, we working. When people on break, we not on break. We watching film or we on the field doing some type of work.
What was the summer like to kind of example that?
Last year's summer, it was 30 times worse than last year's summer. They put us through adversity through the summer, so we'll be ready for the game. So it was really nothing.
Is it like weight room stuff? Is it, talk about
weight room, and then later in the summer, we get to focus like on the games and we start watching film.
What do you tell about about the not being for everybody, about the culture of the program? What's the message you give to guys when they come in to the program, especially when they're coming from out of state and they don't really know?
Yeah, I just tell them come in with a hard working mindset. If you put your mind to it, you'll get through anything. So if you can make it through Central some workouts, you're gonna make it through the season. You're gonna face adversity in life, so you might as well come first face it at Miami Central.
And that team concept too, because there's a lot of guys that come in and could easily be about me, and not, what do you tell them about that part of it?
Yeah, it's about us, because this is a team. This is a team sport. Hey, without your team, we won't have no state championship. So you can't just come and be about yourself. You have to be about the team.
And that's the whole thing, I guess, if that can happen for them. But I mean, one thing for sure, I think that maybe we kind of opened our eyes when we saw those quarterbacks arrive. I think is experience. And like what you were saying before, that's an edge that Norland could have. If all the other pieces fall into place, Enio Yapor has been there, done that. He's won a state title already at Champagnat. He's one of the top players. He's used to playing South Florida football. And that's the thing. These new guys that have come in, one of them has played football before down here, but the other two quarterbacks that Central got, it's going to be interesting to see how they acclimate and how they, fit into this, once those big battles start to happen later in the season. But we spoke to Enio Yapor too, just about, coming in with all these high expectations for Norland and what he thinks is going to happen with the Vikings.
Enio, tell us a little bit about this offseason and just, it's been an interesting offseason for Norland. I know a lot of new faces, but also guys like you too that have been leaders of this team for a while. Tell us a little bit how all that's kind of mixing together to try and put together a championship team?
Well, this offseason, man, we really focused on mainly, we got a lot of new transfers, a lot of new kids. So we decided, man, let's really get that chemistry, that bond, really build up to be that state championship team. One of the main reasons coaches trusted me to be the leader is one, because he felt like I find it's my time to lead. It's my 11th grade year now, and he felt like I have to take that role, take that step up. And really, I feel like it was just my natural role. So really, this offseason, we focused on building chemistry, butted heads, really got to understand each other. Make sure that, when we play against these other teams, that we aren't fighting against ourselves. We fight against our teams, because really the only people that could beat us is truly us.
What did you do individually to try to become a better quarterback?
Individually, I really focus on my reads. I focus also on my body mainly because, I have to look the part more. But mainly, I feel like the physical part of my game, I feel like that's something that God has blessed me. I feel like that's something I've developed pretty well. Now just working on my mentality and the other little things to fine-tune myself.
Obviously, you can use your legs too to your advantage. So how much is the running game part of the position for you?
The running game, I feel like the game of football is changing. I've watched so many quarterbacks from Dan Marino to Lamar Jackson to Patrick Mahomes, and they all were different quarterbacks, different eras. And when I watch each quarterback, I feel like you could take something from each era. So I do have that pass first mindset where I would love to throw the ball, but then I also have that threat to where now I could run the ball, because I feel like when I add that threat of me running the ball, defenses have to respect me into a certain manner.
Sometimes quarterbacks don't like taking hits, but are you a little different than that?
I'm way different, man.
Yeah.
Trust me, when I was little, I played defense, man, and I loved every second of it. I love hitting, I love the contact. I feel like if you want to play football, you got to love the hit. You got to love the contact. You got to be a little crazy in there.
Yeah. But at the same time, there is a degree of being smart about it too.
Of course,
yes. How do you handle that?
Really, what I do focus on, I focus on myself, my body. What I'm currently on a journey where I have my own ice, where I, every day wake up, throw ice in an ice tub, and I just ice and rehabilitate. Mornings I wake up, I stretch my body. But there's certain things that you could do to take your game to that next level, and you can help yourself develop.
You mentioned being a leader, but you came into Northern last year as a sophomore. It seemed like you were a pretty good leader right away. Mm-hmm. Do you think that, like what Andre was talking about, the way that you play, where you are not afraid to run into trouble, do you think that kind of rallies the guys around you a little bit? Yeah.
It definitely does. I feel like when guys see a young kid like that, a young kid who could go up to a bigger guy and be like, man, you have to be better than me. I have the heart of a lion. I fear God. I fear God only. I'm a God-fearing man, and I don't fear no other kid, nor anybody. And so I feel like when I step on that field, they put on their pants like I put on their pants. And I feel like that's something that people could respect and people would actually want to follow. So when I look at that, I feel like, yeah, that's something that will help.
You guys, I'm sorry, last year you guys didn't get as far as you want to go, but you got pretty far. What do you think is going to be needed to take it past and get to state?
I feel like what's needed to take it past, first of all, I feel like the things that I need to do, I feel like I needed to stay on track of my game, stay on track of the game plan, because something I do notice myself, again, the mentality thing that I mentioned earlier, is that I tend to probably get away or maybe fall or not just turn away from the game. I feel like if I stay online and just stay focused and keep that focus part, it's the little things that I feel like would help us change, like the mentality, staying in the game, giving that one little extra push, that one extra yard. Like my coach Heidelberg said, football is a game of inches. Every inch counts. And I feel like if we had just had a little bit more, we would have won.
There's a lot of guys that are wearing the Northern jersey for the first time. But was there a lot of guys that kind of already knew each other, though, from youth football and had good friendships going on?
That's a good thing about all these transfers. A lot of these transfers, man, I knew them. Like Larry, I knew Larry when I was in 8th grade. I knew Jerm when he played on the park with me. And there's so many kids that, that I finally knew, especially the younger guys. The older guys, we've gotten to know, but everybody has such a good vibe. This is a true, genuine team. We all really mess. We're brothers. I could be honest. It's such a little time we really became brothers.
I'm sure that made it easy, for them coming in,
exactly,
getting acclimated to the system, everything, right?
Mm-hmm. Did you guys do anything fun to try to team bonding, stuff like that? What did you guys do this summer?
We went to the beach, we went to Extreme, and then, that was something that the coaches coordinated. Mm-hmm. But as players, we do stuff all the time. We hang it at each other's houses. We want to do whatever
kids being kids. Like we still, at the end of the day, we still kids. So we still hang out. We actually like each other. It's not like something that's forced, man. It's like it's a true, genuine bond.
Which of the new guys? I don't want to make you single people out, but I'm sure there are some of the new guys that you're really close. Anyone like you spent a lot of time with this summer?
Jay Carr, my wide receiver from South Broward. Jade is a dude I really spent time with. And even with the older guys, like especially as you develop with them, they tend to open up more, especially to a younger kid like me. So Joaquin, Zay, Mighty Mouse, all of them, you know, they see me as a little brother, but they know I could hang up there, like I'm cool.
All right, well, that Enio, I think, you know, again, he's going to be a big influence on what happens, and we'll see how that shakes out. But let's go down to the district below it, District 14, 2M. That's Booker T, Jackson, Edison, and LaSalle, which, again, another tough district overall, but it's starting to kind of favor Booker T, I think, because of the fact that Northwestern's kind of reloading a little bit. You know, they've taken a hit as far as graduations, and then also a lot of young players and young spots. The new coach, Michael Lee Harris, we saw it against Chaminade, kind of overwhelmed in the first half there. It's going to be one of those seasons where you might see a lot of growing pains early on. But Booker T, you know, I think Booker T, another one that has an experienced quarterback in Claudel Sherman, and, you know, a guy like Jamori Flagg leading their defense. I feel like Booker T probably thinks everybody's talking about Central.
I agree. I mean, I'm not saying they're on that, you know, like Norland beat them in the playoffs, right? Like they're third right now, like just because of how last season went and the way those two rosters look. But Booker T, like they took a big leap last year, right? It was Ice Harris's first year back, so not a surprise, but they were kind of like, you know, a middling 500, 4-6, 6-4 for a couple years in a row there. Ice comes back, and immediately they turn things around. Like they're going to be a state championship program again, because you know, how many has Ice won? Like, and every time he's come back, gone left and come back, how many times, and wins every time he comes back? Like they're building up to it. They're young. Like they got a lot of guys back, like you said. Claudel Sherman, their quarterback, a couple guys in the secondary, including Ben Hanks Jr., who was, you know, kind of emerging already as a lockdown guy, just as a sophomore last year. They're, you know, I think Norland is very senior heavy, with a lot of transfers. Central is Central. Like you can't pick against them until like further notice at this point. But Booker T, like in a year or two, would not be surprised if they're in the like Norland position, right? Or you know, it's hard for anyone to get to the Central position because not a lot of teams have had a run like Central's had, but like wouldn't be surprised if they get to that level again very soon.
I think on paper, you're right. There maybe it seems like they're a touch behind, but if anyone's going to pull it off, I think it's
exactly. Exactly.
Wars has been through those battles.
Yeah, they killed Norland in the regular season. Norland came back and beat them in the playoffs. So you know, they're pretty even, and both, and you know, honestly, both Booker T and Norland gave Central, you know, a little bit of a test when they played during the season. So I think it'll be competitive. You know, Central, a lot has been made about Norland's transfers for good reason, but like Central lost a lot too. Have a lot of transfers coming in, as you mentioned, some quarterbacks in particular. Like, you know, you can't pick against Central right now. Like it's hard to. But I think it could be a pretty like a good three-way competition, I think, between all three of those teams.
Yeah, and beyond that in the district, like we said before, it's Edison, Jackson, and LaSalle. Edison, you know, they had a rough one in the preseason game already, but you know, Luther Campbell's got some talent on that squad, and Sterling Joseph at running back.
Yep.
Of course, the Exum brothers linemen that play one of them, Shenelson, plays on the offensive side, Denelson on the defensive side. So they'll be in the fight, just like Jackson. You know, the last year they both kind of fell short, unfortunately, because of the way the bracketing worked. Where
this region is hell. Yeah,
exactly. So they were I think they were like the 10th and 11th seeds, but they were probably better than some of the teams that did get in. And I think that'll kind of be the same sort of situation this year, where they'll be battling. They might have a little more of a chance if Northwestern.
Yeah, we don't know what Northwestern's going to look like yet. They're kind of a big mystery. They got Adrian Posse transferring in as quarterback, so they've got a guy there. Calvin Russell seems like he's going to be like kind of the next Northwestern superstar, but only a sophomore wide receiver who started a couple of games at quarterback, I think, last year.
Yeah,
when
Tiger was hurt.
Yeah, so you know, they've got talent, but they're young. I mean, when Michael E. Harris came to Media Day a couple weeks back, the whole team was like sophomores. Everyone he brought, it was like, this guy's a sophomore, this guy's a freshman. So they're like, I think he knows they're not, obviously their goal is to make the playoffs, and Northwestern certainly they want to make the playoffs there. But I think Michael Lee Harris knows it's a multi-year process he's got ahead of him.
Yeah, it's just going to be tough because you hope for Michael Lee's sake. I remember covering Michael Lee, good guy. He's got a good message for that team, but they're going to have to be patient, I think. Yeah. And that's a word that doesn't exist sometimes in the Northwestern community vocabulary when it comes to football. But this is a brutal schedule that they're going to go through. They already Chaminade didn't count, but Vero Beach will. Yep. Then the Soul Bowl, but then they're going to play everybody. They're going to play Booker T. They're going to play Norland, Central. You name it.
They'll win a game somewhere where it's like, okay, they
may shock somebody,
right? Like that's what they got to do this year. They got to knock off someone.
Yeah, they got to knock off someone and kind of remind people they're still Northwestern kind of thing. But moving down, and here's the district that threw a wrench into Edison and Jackson's plans last year, and that's that tiny 3-team battle between St. Brendan, Miami Springs, and of course Westland Hialeah. And when you look at it this year, it kind of feels like the same. It feels like St. Brendan still might have the upper hand. Steve Smith's been building something down there. They were 7-4 last year. He has some kids coming back, a lot of two-way players. Whitley Jean-Francois, running back, linebacker, a senior, kind of leading the way from that group there. Springs has one kid, though, Dante Alexander. Keep an eye on this kid, junior, wide receiver, free safety, pretty talented, has some offers. But in terms of depth, it seems like St. Brendan might be the team that has just the most of it to probably emerge as the champion in that district and get another playoff spot.
Yeah, and Westland kind of lost a lot too, right? Jamari Howard, who is probably the best recruit, at least to come out of Westland in a long time, transfers to Miami Central. St. Brendan, I mean, they've got seems like they've been building a little bit. They're a team I kind of wish was in 1A. Like, it seems like they could be kind of interesting in that classification. Probably overwhelmed here. 1M, I should say.
1M, yeah, right.
But
I know what you meant.
Those facilities are really nice. Like Miami used to do, they might still do scrimmages there sometimes. Like they've definitely got the infrastructure there to become a pretty good program. And Steve Smith is clearly committed to trying to turn them into a good program. I don't know if they'll ever be able to compete in 2M with some of the teams that we're talking about, but they can definitely be a good program that's like a playoff staple.
Yeah, and here's another interesting district when it comes to teams that probably will make the playoffs, and that's 16-2M, a little larger, obviously, with 5 teams in there. Gulliver has been the best there last year, 5-5, made the playoffs. Still have some talent. Saw their roster briefly the other day. They retired Sean Taylor's jersey, dedicated their new field. By the way, very beautiful.
Oh yeah, they were working on that all year. I forgot. Yeah,
beautiful state-of-the-art scoreboard that they're going to have now. It's the Sean Taylor Memorial Field once again. So they had a nice ceremony out there. But the team, Dylan Calero, a fullback, linebacker, senior, Amari Sanders, Kenny Williams. So some talent there for Earl Sims. But I have a feeling, and Killian, we weren't sure how much better they were going to be. But Bryce Bishop, they went through a tough one last year, 3-7, when they had a ton of kids transfer out. But they have a new quarterback that came over from Cypress Bay. And, I mean, not Cypress Bay, from Doral Academy, excuse me. And Caden Sims, a wide receiver, a senior, a couple linemen there, the Damian Gill,
the Gill brothers. Yep.
The Gill brothers. Killian, I think, is the sneaky team that might end up winning this district because, yes, Gulliver will still be competitive and still be good, but Killian is one of those schools that if enough talent gathers together, it can happen for them. Or at the very least, they can be decent enough where they can maybe make a playoff run.
Yeah, Gulliver lost a lot, and Killian was, obviously really, kind of disappointing year last year. They'd been good for a couple of years before that. And then it took them a long time to settle on Bryce Bishop as their new coach. And that was in-house promotion there. So probably lost more than they should have. And, now he's back. He's, an alumnus there, former offensive lineman at Ohio State. Again, was an assistant coach for some good teams there before. They've retained some talent. Like I said, Damian Gill going to USF. They've got some dudes. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets them back pointed in the right direction pretty quickly, because I feel like this district is, Gulliver was kind of, I know they only went 500 last year, but a lot of talent there last year. This year, this district's wide open. And I kind of agree with you that Killian is the sneaky team there.
Yeah, and RT's Knight does a great job coaching at South
Mhm.
Miami. They got a tough loss starting out with True North, but he'll have some talent back.
Yep.
Jalen Mack, senior athlete, leading the way there. Intriguing with Silver Palms at Somerset. Keep an eye on them because Coach Matt Dixon, one of the veteran coaches in this county, they just got them. They also got a home field now. They're a really nice one too down there in the Homestead area. And if Silver Palms, we've seen it happen in other sports for them. It's still kind of in the building phase down there, but that could be a team that's competitive in the next couple of years. And of course, Everglades Prep trying to build off a 2-6 year at the bottom of that district as well. But David, overall in 2M, I mean, we made our picks. I think you got to go with. Had to go with Central just based on past history. They've proven they can do it. But Norland will have a chance. This will not be a blowout. This will be a competitive team. And if the quarterback experience, I'm telling you, if the quarterback experience swings in their favor, it's hard to win 5 in a row. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I flirted with picking Norland, but just like, again, it's like you just can kind of justify it, right? How good Central has been, like, until further notice. I'm not doubting them. But so I went with Central, and I went with American Heritage as the team they end up going up against in the state championship or rematch. Another one where, like, sure, I would give it, if it's Gibbons, wouldn't be stunned at all. But I think Heritage, as the season goes, they're young. They're going to get better as the year goes on. And another team, it's the quarterbacks, right? It's kind of the two contrasts there is the kind of underdog or the like upstart in each one has probably the more established quarterback, whereas the reigning power is figuring it out a little bit.
All right. Well, that was our overall season preview. Now we shift to the present because it's all starting up this weekend. So we have 6 games that this is the lightning round. We're going to go through it pretty quick. We've got a long show as it is. We don't want to keep everybody too long watching this, although we always appreciate it. But let's start in Dade County. We talked a lot about that Broward Showcase, but before we do that, why don't we start with some of these big games, especially probably the biggest one in Dade County this weekend, Palmetto and Homestead, and that's 7:30 Friday night at Harris Field. This game last year, Palmetto was sort of the favorite, and Homestead that was the game that pretty much set Homestead on the course for their state finals run. This time, I saw Palmetto against Doral. Ja'Cory Barney does a lot for that team, playing quarterback, great receiver. They have some athletes, but I think the depth of Homestead is what really plays into it in this one. And I think we're going to see how valuable it's been for them to keep everybody that they kept in the offseason, plus the new additions.
Yeah, I think this Palmetto team maybe is being forgotten just a little bit. I think they've got a really good amount of talent there at this point. Ja'Cory Barney is one of the best all-around weapons in the region, but Homestead with the edge at quarterback, right? Josh Townsend's one of the best in the state. And, the depth. This is a chance for Palmetto to make a statement that they're still in the mix here. But I'll pick Homestead here.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I think if Townsend and those guys, it's going to be a fun atmosphere. It sounds like Palmetto's going to take a lot of people down there from what I was told from the Doral game. So that's good. Glad to see a packed house down there at Harris Field. Some good football usually there on most nights. And before we do that, let's remind everybody of what Ja'Cory Barney can do. Here's a couple plays from that game, that 35-3 beatdown they gave Doral. Had to give people a taste. Starting next week, we're going to have a lot more highlights like we did last year. But yeah, Barney, Nebraska commit. There you see it, both as a quarterback and as a pass catcher, what he can do. One of the best players in town. Let's switch now. These are a couple games involving Dade teams, but they're going to be on the road. Some tough tests right off the bat, for one, especially for the defending 4M champions, Columbus, as they go up to Clearwater to face a Clearwater Academy International team that actually Homestead just beat in the preseason, which was kind of an eye-opener.
Yeah.
Supposedly, Clearwater was down a few kids, but still, that team is like a mini IMG. Even if you were down a few kids, that's a heck of a victory for the Broncos. I wonder if Columbus has it in them. I think this game will kind of show you if Columbus is ready for the national spotlight. I think we both agree they're the clear favorite in 4M.
Yeah.
But how much better are they? That defensive front is going to have to play well. and Alberto Mendoza is going to have to be sharp, and some of the new skill guys. Their offensive line is going to really have to be. They're going to be tested.
That's what I worry about. That's what I worry about. That's why I like Clearwater Academy International in this one. That team's huge, always. And sometimes they have older guys too. They're not in a district. Like you said, they're like an IMG. Again, acknowledging we don't know a whole lot about them in terms of who's going to play and all that kind of stuff. I think this is a really good test for that offensive line. Obviously they want to win, but I think Dave Dunn will be happy just to get his offensive line exposure against a team like that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think even if they do lose, it's one of those games that, like you said, development and move on for a team with high expectations this year. I mean, I think I picked Columbus by like a point in the paper just because Clearwater stumped me a little bit last week by losing Homestead. But it wouldn't surprise me if this is a juggernaut that's really going to push them and probably end, the winning streak that Columbus enters the season on right there. And here's another situation like that. New Orleans going up to Lakeland. Those Dreadnoughts, when they're back, they are back to being Lakeland again. They have been the last couple of years. But I have a feeling that this is where New Orleans kind of shows people, hey, we can beat Central. This is the perfect way to do it. Take down a state power like this.
Yeah, I have the exact same thing written in my notes. Norland over Lakeland. Statement win for the Vikings.
There you go. So now we're going to dive into the Broward Showcase for sure. As we start with, we're going to highlight the three big games on Saturday, two of which are going to be televised on ESPN. Yep. Let's start with the noon game. High noon, super hot probably. Hopefully not. Hopefully the weather holds up. Chaminade taking on St. Francis Academy. David, you know a bit about St. Francis Academy from the Baltimore area, powerhouse team up there. Another team with a lot of size. Yeah. And that was what killed Chaminade last year when they faced Bishop Gorman. They got destroyed up front. And, Gorman ran for I want to say 300, 400 yards, something like that. Something absurd. So can Chaminade stop that this time around?
Going in, I was prepared to pick St. Francis, and they got shut out by Buford. So I'm going with Chaminade in this one. St. Francis is still really good, but Biff Pogge's not there anymore. Coaching at University of Charlotte now. So, they're not the St. Francis that we saw come down here. What was that, 4 or 5 years ago and destroy Central? That's not who they are anymore.
Yeah.
They're still really good. They're still one of the 20 or so best teams in the country, but they're not that.
Yeah. And another one that's going to be really hard is Aquinas taking on St. John Bosco in California. I mean, this Broward Showcase, we got to give the guys at the BCAA and everyone involved credit. They are bringing the powerhouse teams in already in year 2. St. Thomas, no stranger to this national spotlight, but this is going to be a heck of a test because these kids are coming from California, always loaded on that side. What do you think of this one?
I like St. Thomas. I think home game for them. They play well at home. I think the St. Thomas team in the same way some of these other teams that we talked about in 2M that maybe feel like they're a little overlooked. I'm sure St. Thomas feels the same way at all the Central Chaminade hype, and they've got some inexperience there too. But what St. Thomas looks like every year. So I'm gonna
loaded all.
I'm gonna go with our Broward teams here.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Aquinas finds a way, but close. And then the nightcap won't be at Aquinas; it'll actually be at home at Heritage. And again, like I said, an inspired, maybe an emotional game. With for the Patriots as what they're dealing with right now, and taking on a St. John's team, another team from the DC, Maryland area. They almost came back and beat Chaminade in last year's showcase. I think I feel like I pick. It's hard to pick against Heritage with everything going on, but it is a big test. I mean, I don't know if they're ready for this. I really don't.
I'm going with Heritage because I'm picking all the Broward teams pretty much. But yeah, this is another one like we talk about Norland going up to Lakeland, Columbus going up to Clearwater. Like we're gonna just know a whole lot more about this team because whatever happens this week.
Yeah, I think so too. And Heritage will be fine. I think that, like we said before, I think it's experience they'll gain from this and other games coming up will prepare them for the stretch run, which is the most important. Well, that's long enough. I think we did reach. Tolkien levels of volume here in this thing. So, for David Wilson, I'm Andre Fernandez. Enjoy week 1, everybody. We appreciate you watching, and we'll be back to recap week 1 and look ahead to week 2 next week. Thanks for joining us.